They called me redundant after 40 years. Said my job fixing a 12-ton German press was obsolete. 2 months later, that same machine exploded, causing $3 million in damage. But when I was called back to fix it, I discovered something that would expose the biggest fraud in our industry's history. The evidence was right there in the oil, and I was the only one who could read it. This is how I brought down my boss and his $1 million scheme, just by doing what I'd always done, listening to machines. My name is Robert Hayes, and I've been translating for the Queen since before most of my co-workers were born. Every morning at 5:30, I arrive at Keystone Pressworks while the parking lot's still dark. The air inside tastes metallic, that particular mix of cutting oil and ozone that becomes part of your DNA after 4 decades. The factory floor vibrates under my boots as machines wake up one by one. But I only listen for her, the 1974 Schuler stamping press we imported from Stuttgart. 12 tons of German engineering that the younger techs call that old beast. To me, she's the queen. My palm finds her cast iron frame, reading the vibrations like Braille. There's a tiny scratch near her main valve, a reminder of when someone tried to force the wrong gauge back in '87. I close my eyes and listen. Her idle carries a slight hesitation today. Hydraulic fluid's running low, but she can wait until Thursday. The other mechanics think I'm being dramatic when I talk about machines having personalities. They check gauges, I check rhythms. They read manuals, I read moods. After 40 years, the Queen and I don't need words. I'm her translator, the only one who understands what she's trying to say in the language of pressure and rhythm. This morning, she sounds worried. I should have listened harder. Mark Jensen arrived 6 months ago, part of the private equity firm's optimization team. Today, he's on the floor, his aftershave fighting a losing battle against 40 years of embedded machine oil. "Hayes," he calls out, waving my maintenance requisition. "We need to discuss your spending." He's young enough to be my son, with an MBA that cost more than my house. This hydraulic fluid, $48 a gallon. Fuchs Renolin B46. It's what she's designed for. I found an alternative at $14. Similar specifications. Similar isn't identical. The Queen seals. Right, the Queen. He attempts a smile. "Look, I respect your experience, but margins are tight. The automotive industry is brutal right now. We're all making sacrifices." Dave Martinez, our floor supervisor, passes by and catches my expression. We've worked together 20 years. He knows my temper. I force myself to breathe. "Mr. Jensen, those seals are original German rubber. The wrong viscosity will cause premature wear. Then we'll replace them when they fail. It's still cheaper." He hands back the requisition. "Make it work, Hayes. That's what you're good at, right?" As he walks away, young Chris from second shift approaches. "What happens if we use the cheap stuff?" "Nothing immediate. That's the problem with cutting corners. The bill always comes due later." The Queen rumbles beneath my hand. If machines could sigh, that's what this would be. Jensen's office has glass walls. Transparency, he calls it. Everyone can see me sitting across from his organized desk, can see him slide the folder across. I'll be direct. We're restructuring maintenance. Your position is being eliminated. 40 years compressed into one word. Eliminated. You're serious. The numbers don't lie. Your salary is our highest maintenance cost. We can hire 2 techs for what we pay you. He leans back. I fought for a severance package. 1 month. My pension wasn't fully vested when Ridgeline Capital acquired Keystone. I'm sorry, but that's just how these transitions work. My jaw clenches. I never wrote down the Queen's quirks. Never created the manual that would make me replaceable. Now that pride is costing me everything. When you change her hydraulic fluid, the new team can handle it. There's a pressure sequence. After draining, you need to cycle at 20 psi, then, thank you, Robert. Security will help you collect your things. The walk across the floor stretches forever. Dave shakes his head, angry but powerless. Chris won't meet my eyes. The Queen's rhythm falters as I pass. Or maybe I'm imagining it. In the parking lot, I sit in my truck for 10 minutes, listening to nothing. After 40 years of industrial heartbeats, silence sounds like failure. 2 months into retirement, I'm reorganizing my garage for the third time when Sarah visits. My daughter inherited her mother's sharp mind and my stubborn streak, landed her a position at a regional accounting firm. Dad, those wrenches were already perfect. Perfect is relative, she perches on my workbench. Speaking of work, I noticed something odd. We audit several manufacturing firms, and Keystone came up. My hands pause. What about them? They switched suppliers for industrial fluids, started using some company called Precision Fluid Systems. Thing is, I've never seen them before, and I track most regional suppliers. Cost cutting. Maybe, but their payment structure is weird. 40% upfront, another 40% on delivery. Cash flow nightmare for a company Keystone's size. Unless they're desperate for credit. That's what I thought. But Keystone's credit is fine. Why accept terrible terms from an unknown supplier? A thought scratches at the back of my mind. You still dating that IT guy? The one who does background checks? Dad. Just curious if he could look up a company. Professionally speaking. She studies me. You're retired, remember? I remember everything. That's the problem. 3 days later, she calls. Precision Fluid Systems is interesting. Incorporated 4 months ago. Their filing address is a mail drop in Wilmington. Shell company. Tom traced their business license. The formation documents linked to a law firm that specializes in asset protection. Very expensive, very discreet. So someone's hiding ownership. Or hiding something else. Dad, what are you thinking? I'm thinking about the Queen, running on God knows what kind of fluid. But I just say, nothing concrete. Thanks, sweetheart. Old habits die hard. I still wake at 5 a.m., so I use the time to research. Precision Fluid Systems has a website that screams template. Stock photos, generic promises, no employee names or company history. Their product catalog lists hydraulic fluids at prices that make no sense. Too cheap for quality, too expensive for garbage, the sweet spot for skimming. My phone rings. Dave Martinez. Robert, quick question. You ever heard of Redline 30-weight hydraulic fluid? Never. Why? That's what we're running now. Comes in barrels marked precision. Smells different than the old stuff. Almost sharp? Sharp how? Chemical sharp. Burns your nose a little. Jensen says it's just a different formula. Dave, do me a favor. Any chance you could grab me a small sample, for comparison? Robert, I can't just... I've got a bet with Tommy at Bracken about new fluid formulations. $50 says I can identify the base stock blindfolded. Dave laughs. You never change. Yeah, I'll grab some next shift. Meet you at Murphy's after work Thursday. After we hang up, Sarah texts, Dad, found more. 3 other companies in the region switched to Precision around the same time, all pushed by new management from private equity buyouts. The pattern forms like rust on steel, slow, inevitable, destructive. But patterns aren't proof. Not yet. Thursday never comes. Wednesday, 6:52 a.m., my phone lights up. Dave calling. Robert, Christ, the Queen's blown her main seal. The coffee mug slips from my fingers, shattering on concrete. The whole system's contaminated, Dave's shouting over alarms. That fluid turned to sludge under pressure, scored the cylinder walls, ate through the gaskets. We've got hydraulic spray everywhere. Chris got chemical burns on his arm. They're flushing his skin now. Chemical burns, not thermal. That means, Dave, listen carefully. Get everyone away from that fluid. It's not just bad oil. It's toxic. And get a sample in a clean jar. Hide it. Robert, what the hell is going on? Just do it. I'll explain later. The line cuts. I stare at the bottle Dave was supposed to bring me tonight. The sample I'd collected last week from Tommy's shop. Real Fuchs fluid for comparison. Now I'll never need it. My phone rings. Unknown number. Hayes? This is Jensen. I need you here. Now. His polished voice cracks like old leather. Your machine, the press, it's destroyed half the floor. We're looking at weeks of downtime. Sounds like you should call your optimization team. Don't be clever. What's your rate? More than you want to pay. Name it. I think about my lost pension, about Chris's burnt arm, about the Queen choking on poison. Consulting fee, $20,000. Corporate check made out to me personally before I start. I'll have accounting cut it within the hour. Just get here. I'll need to stop by my house first. Special tools. What I really need are the test strips I bought after Dave's call about the strange smell. By the time I reach Keystone, half the parking lot's full of emergency vehicles, not fire trucks, but hazmat teams. The Apex fluid didn't just fail, it created an environmental incident. Jensen meets me at the door, sweat staining his designer shirt. The EPA's here. They're saying the hydraulic fluid is contaminated with chlorinated solvents. Do you know what the fine is for improper chemical storage? I'm not surprised, but I don't tell him that. What I'd suspected from Dave's description, the sharp chemical smell, was worse than corner cutting. Someone was disposing of hazardous waste by selling it as hydraulic fluid. 3 days ago, after Sarah told me about the other companies, I'd called an old friend at the regional EPA office, mentioned my concerns about possible contamination at multiple sites, suggested they might want to be ready if something happened. The Queen's failure wasn't just predictable, it was the evidence they'd been waiting for. I was cutting costs, not... Save it for the investigators. Where's my check? He hands me an envelope, hands shaking. Just fix this. I'll stabilize her. But Jensen, your cost-cutting just became evidence in an environmental crime. His face goes pale. What are you talking about? I just switched suppliers to save money. I didn't know. Didn't know what? That Precision Fluid Systems doesn't exist except on paper. That someone's been selling industrial waste as hydraulic fluid? There was a sales rep. Professional presentation. They had all the right certifications. For the first time, I see real fear in his eyes. Not the fear of losing money, but of being the fall guy in something bigger than he understood. Inside, the Queen looks like a murder victim. Brown sludge pools around her base, eating into the concrete. The smell makes my eyes water. Definitely chlorinated compounds. Someone's been selling hazardous waste as hydraulic fluid, pocketing disposal fees and fluid sales. I get to work, but not before slipping on nitrile gloves and pulling out sample vials. Every drop of fluid I collect is potential evidence. Dave helps, understanding without being told. Chris watches from a distance, his right arm wrapped in gauze. See this? I show Chris the corroded seal. Chemical attack, not mechanical failure. Someone sold us poison and called it hydraulic fluid. Word spreads across the floor. Workers drift over during breaks, watching me document the Queen's wounds. I explain everything, teaching chemistry through carnage. Chlorinated solvents, I tell them, holding up a test strip. Probably perchloroethylene. Dry cleaning fluid, basically. Mix it with recycled oil. It looks right, but acts like acid on rubber seals. Why would anyone... Chris starts. Disposal costs for this stuff run $3,000 a barrel. Sell it as hydraulic fluid for $500. You're up $3,500 per barrel. Times 100 barrels. Across multiple companies. Dave whistles low. That's serious money. And serious time if you're caught. The EPA technician Rodriguez nods approvingly as I label samples. You know your chemistry, Mr. Hayes. 40 years of listening to machines. They tell you when something's wrong, if you speak their language. By afternoon, I've got the Queen stable, barely functional, but not bleeding poison. Jensen hovers at the edge of the floor, no longer the confident optimizer. She'll run, I tell him, loud enough for everyone to hear. But you need to completely rebuild the hydraulic system. And next time someone tells you a machine has specific needs, maybe listen. I swear I didn't know, he says quietly. The savings were supposed to help keep the plant open. Ridgeline was talking about shutting us down if we couldn't improve margins. I study him. Young, ambitious, in over his head. Criminal? Maybe. Or maybe just another gear in someone else's machine. The story breaks in the business section first. Keystone Press Works under EPA investigation for hazardous waste violations. By week 2, it's front page. Multi-state fraud ring sold toxic waste as industrial fluid. Sarah brings me the newspaper and fresh coffee. Says here the EPA traced the contaminated fluid back to an illegal waste facility in Jersey. They were paying companies to take chlorinated solvents, and those companies were repackaging it as hydraulic fluid. Expensive optimization. Jensen's cooperating with investigators. Turns out he was just a dupe. The real orchestrators were 2 executives at Ridgeline Capital. They set up precision fluid systems and pushed their portfolio companies to use it. So he keeps his job? Opposite. Keystone's board fired him and half of Ridgeline's appointments. Dave Martinez is interim plant manager. She pauses. Dad. The EPA report credits a concerned industry professional with alerting them to the pattern. You wouldn't know anything about that. I fix machines. Sometimes that means fixing the systems that break them. She laughs. Dave called yesterday. They want to hire you back as senior equipment specialist. Full benefits, consulting rate, and, get this, you'd train everyone on both maintenance and contamination detection. Tell Dave thanks, but I'm done with that world. Really? Even the Queen? I think about it. The Queen has Dave now. He knows her language. My $20,000 check sits on the workbench, uncashed. Blood money, even if Jensen didn't know it. I've already decided where it's going. Chris's medical bills and a fund for workers affected by the contamination. 6 months later, my garage smells like brass polish and precision oil. Sarah visits Sunday mornings, bringing coffee and conversation while I work on a 1958 Bulova. This gear's smaller than my fingernail, I show her. But put it in wrong, the whole watch stops. Like integrity? Or like truth? Small piece, but everything depends on it working right. She watches me work. Any regrets about Keystone? About staying silent for 40 years? Yes. About believing my knowledge made me irreplaceable? Definitely. I fit the gear into place with surgical precision. But not about the ending. Those Ridgeline executives thought they were so clever, using new managers as unknowing accomplices. The newspaper said the fraud totaled $12 million across 8 companies. That's just what they proved. Probably more still out there, running on poison, waiting to fail. The Bulova starts ticking. Steady, honest, true. Each tick a promise kept. You know what I learned? I set down my tools. Spent 40 years thinking my value was in being the only one who could hear the Queen. But my real value was in teaching others to hear danger. Outside, suburban morning blooms quiet and safe. Inside, time moves to rhythms I control, measured in movements too small to see, but too important to ignore. Dave sends updates sometimes. The Queen runs smooth under his care, drinking proper fluid, speaking in frequencies he learned to hear. The young techs know her language now. Not just pressure and temperature, but chemistry and consequences. My phone buzzes. A text from Chris. Mr. Hayes' arm healed perfectly. Starting EPA certification program next month. Thanks for showing us what to look for. I smile and return to my clocks. The Queen is silent now, but her last lesson echoes in every tick. Knowledge hoarded is knowledge wasted. The real translation was never about the machines. It was about the truth they tell, if you're brave enough to listen.